South Korea had their Armed Forces Day on October 1st today. And during the ceremonies, the North Korean President Park Guen-Hye, I probably butchered that, but I believe that's how it's pronounced, actually released a statement saying that she welcomes North Korean defectors. And this is in response to an incident that actually happened on Thursday in which a North Korean soldier actually defected. He got through the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, and he defected to South Korea. This is actually a relatively rare incident. It was only last year. It only happened once over a year ago. So this is a pretty rare occurrence for South Korea. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this when, there's more like closer to home issues is because I felt that this moved into an issue I talked about last video when I mentioned that climate change was actually a bigger threat to humanity than terrorism. So, going from that, I wanted to talk about a foreign actor that I believe is also a bigger threat to us than ISIS is. So, not that long ago, it was on September 9th, North Korea actually detonated their most powerful nuclear weapon that had the power of, it was about 10 kilotons, which would actually put it at roughly half the power of the bomb that hit Nagasaki, the Fat Man. Which obviously, since that was 70 years ago, it becomes easy to scoff at it. But the thing is we have to remember who detonated that. It's North Korea. Kim Jong-un. One of the most, or probably the most irrational actor out there. Even more than, the most fundamentalist people or organizations and governments in the Middle East. This guy's nuts. He doesn't know what he's doing. He kills his own civilians. He kills his own direct subordinates by anti-aircraft machine guns. This guy's nuts, and this guy's getting closer and closer, though obviously slowly, to getting nuclear power. And once he does, currently it's confirmed that they can hit some of Japan, or it's close to Japan, and they can obviously hit South Korea because South Korea is right next to them. But eventually they're going to get to the point where they can hit all of Japan, they can hit some of China, and that they eventually can very well hit the western coast of the U.S. And that becomes a real issue because that means that North Korea becomes a real nuclear actor. So when it comes to North Korea, it's a lot more tough of an issue, I feel like, than dealing with even ISIS, because when it comes to North Korea, you're dealing with a government that's in place and does not care at all about its civilians. He doesn't care. You can sanction him, you can cut off all aid, everything, and the administration just does not care as long as it's not affecting them. So, how do we stop them from becoming a nuclear actor? Because with Iran, we made the Iran arms deal where we managed to get them away from becoming a nuclear power. But that's not going to really work with North Korea, because North Korea is an outsider, and they're proud to be an outsider. They don't care what America or any of these other countries say. So it's a question as to how we're going to deal with this diplomatically, because we don't want to deal with this by force, because if we do, millions of South Koreans are going to die. A lot of North Korea's own civilians are going to die. There's going to be a lot of dead innocent people, and it probably honestly won't ultimately solve much, because we killed a lot of innocent people to stop a guy from killing a bunch of innocent people. So militarily, this really isn't going to work. So it's a situation that I feel is almost, it's good for people to kind of think about, because if we can think about how to deal with this in as peaceful a situation as possible, potentially we can then reform our foreign policy with other nations to, deal with more situations without resorting to war. Because, and drone strikes and all this stuff, because it's not working. Through drone strikes we just create more terrorism, and it's violence just doesn't really end up helping the vast majority of the time. Obviously, in justified war, that's a different situation, but the United States is too keen to go the violence route and bombing route. So, but the issue is that this isn't really going to get as much attention as it deserves, because it's not the Middle East. They don't have oil. They don't really have these resources that our government cares about, and it doesn't make the news like anything from anything ISIS does, or any other terrorist organization. And when it comes to North Korea, we've already seen that they have obviously very hostile intent. Though honestly, when they did apparently hack Sony, though I don't know, maybe we should actually thank them for that, because the Sony hack was actually pretty funny. But at the same time, as I said before, their currently most powerful detonated nuclear warhead is only half the power of the bomb that hit Nagasaki, the Fat Man. So they still have a long way to go, probably about 70 years. But in 70 years, I don't know if we should wait that long till North Korea actually is a legitimate nuclear threat. In terms of what the South Korean government is, I guess, encouraging at this point, it's potentially gonna help a little bit. It's not gonna help much, because it's very hard for for North Koreans to defect. A lot of it's through China, and getting through that demilitarized zone is nearly impossible, because it's one of the most heavily secured demilitarized zones on the planet, if not the most. But potentially an uprising from within might be the best situation. North Korea kind of deals with itself. I'm not entirely sure, but it's just one of those situations that it doesn't really have a readily apparent solution. So it's just something that I think should be talked about more, because this is a foreign threat, and these are not people that I want to have power over any country, and I want the North Koreans to be able to live freely. It was recently found out that in the North Korean internet, how we have like millions upon millions of sites, they have 28. Which goes to show just how backwards they are, but it also goes to show that that's how tight-fisted Kim Jong-un is on his people. He does not want this information getting in. The dear leader has to be the god amongst his people. So, yeah, it's very scary. And heaven forbid that Trump does win, and a situation like this ends up further escalating. North Korea does something stupid and they end up damaging Japan, and Trump's not going to have patience to deal with that diplomatically. So it's all these kind of just elements that really make it so that it's not clear how to deal with it. But I think it's something that people need to be thinking about a lot more.